Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in the Field with the Handyman in the Field. I'm Dustin, and this week it's starting to ramp up. It's starting to ramp up a lot. I know I've said this a couple of weeks in a row, but it's starting to get a little crazy. I'm going to preface this with saying this week is leading into me taking 5 days of vacation, but it's dead center in the middle of the business week, Monday through Friday. I had pre-planned this trip back in December. And when I pre-planned it, I was specifically for the purpose of trying to make sure that I go on vacation prior to the summer, because last year the summer was extremely busy for me. So I wanted to make sure that I had more time to get a vacation with my wife. That said, I also didn't realize how busy it was going to get. It's kind of been a little nuts. So while the money's not necessarily going to reflect the total that we've got of everything going on, it'll give a picture of what's going on. So I'm going to go through the jobs, obviously, as I usually do, talk about pricing, and then in addition to that, we're going to talk about all the stuff behind the scenes that's happening with the business, because there's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on, movements, growth, things like that, and I need to get through the jobs because I know that you guys are liking the individual jobs and the pricings and that kind of stuff, but I want to make sure that I get to this business stuff because there's a lot of it. So Monday, going over the schedule, I'm not going to go, I'm going to just strictly go day by day, and then I will go back through the stuff that I had for the rest of the day. But Monday I had one job. It was an existing customer who wanted me to come out to caulk around the exterior of 3 windows. She also had the metal sill plate at the top that holds brick. The mortar was becoming disjointed, so that was just a quick fix there. That job was relatively quick. I was there for, I think it was about an hour and a half. And that job was $320. Now, on the way out of that job, she had 2 more projects that she wanted me to potentially quote her on. One is that she has a brick column that her mailbox is in at the end of her driveway. And the mailbox itself got hit by something and she needs the mailbox replaced. So that was one. And then she had another one where they previously had a hot tub on a patio in the backyard. That hot tub is no longer there, but they're looking for a little bit more privacy, so they want some lattice installed along some columns. Neither one of those is super complicated, and I probably could do both, but she said she wanted the mailbox done. She wanted the mailbox completed more promptly, so I specifically sent out the quote for that. Jumping over to Tuesday. First up, we went back to the house that we were at last week. We're prepping for property sale. That specific project, we bagged up a lot of the garbage that was in the backyard, things like that. I have before and after photos now. We also trimmed the bushes in the front of the house and just made sure that it was tidied up. They're probably going to have a landscaper come through and cut the grass because I don't think the house is going on the market for at least 2 more weeks. That said, the utilities were off from last week. So because the utilities were off, it was impossible to really do anything inside that required any sort of electricity or light. There's not a lot of light in this house to begin with. So I went back there to pick up all the garbage so that I could get rid of that stuff. So that way the outside was completely done and ready to go. And then after that, we went back to the house that I've been doing junk removal for. This is the 3rd trip there. This one was originally planned for Monday. I had a personal doctor's visit that I had on Monday morning, so that did not actually end up happening on Monday. However, he was available Tuesday, so I went over there. We started to continue to clean out the basement, filled up the back of my truck. In addition to that, a previous job that I had done before, there was a number of different things I've done for this specific customer, but there was something where he was concerned about the draft coming from his front windows in his kitchen. He did not want to ultimately replace the windows, so he asked me for a suggestion. My suggestion was hang a drapery rod the length of the windows and get thermal-based curtains to hang. He was for that initially, but then I would say probably within 3 months of doing that, he ended up deciding just to replace the windows. So he had a different company come in and replace the windows, and then after the fact, the drapery rod was no longer needed. These windows have individual blinds already installed, so he wanted the holes patched from the drapery rod. Drapery rod moved, holes patched. Now, I did that on a previous visit. Now, the patches still need to be painted, which he had already said he wanted it to be painted at a separate time. So the paint, that was something that he wanted done this time around. So we went and we took care of the wall paint. We means me, obviously. But that visit was the last visit when it came to the final group. He has some family coming into town for the next couple of weeks. And while there's definitely at least 2 more trips probably of stuff in the basement, that's all we're doing right now. So that means it's billable time. So all those 3 visits with the junk removal came out to $910. That includes the time on site as well as the time off site, sorting through the items for items that were going to charity, also garbage, recycling, things like that. So $910 for that. Moving over to Wednesday. Wednesday we had a couple of things in the morning. We had a LATIP meeting in the morning, which I'll talk about at length a little bit more. We had another meeting, and then we had a job again. Now, I had this specific job. It's an existing customer again, and this customer is currently prepping their house to be sold. They had a couple of things that needed to get taken care of. One of them was getting a light fixture in the bathroom that was mounted on a mirror to be at least appear as if it is all good. They had previously had this thing mounted with double-sided tape, thick mounting tape, and it did work, but the reason why was because the fixture itself was not meant to be directly mounted onto a mirror. It was meant to be above a mirror. So they didn't want to drill into I don't know who they is. It could be, I don't think it's the homeowner. I think it was who built the place, because this fixture is a little bit old. But basically, they didn't want to drill into the mirror itself to mount it. So because of that, that's how they got it up there. So it was just a matter of getting it back in place so that it looks proper. There was a light switch that I had to diagnose. The judgment on that was to leave as is, because the fixture itself is not bad. It's actually a dimmer switch that it also acts as a 3-way switch. That's the problem. Rather than messing with that, they just decided they're going to hold off on that and see if it comes up on the inspection before they do anything with that. They had a wet bar in their dining room where the faucet, one of the sides of the faucet had seized up. There really wasn't a way to get it open, so my suggestion was to replace the entire faucet. They didn't have any preference on type of faucet. It was just, something similar. So we just got we got a Glacier Bay faucet from Home Depot, swapped it out, got the new one installed, all set there. And then the last thing at that job was also painting a wall in his office. He had previously had some patch work done that was on the walls, and in the process attempted to paint it, but figured out after the fact it was the wrong color paint. So they wanted to get the entire wall painted, not the entire room, but just that wall, and then tried to feather as best as possible the one corner that he went over with the other color paint. So that turned out pretty well. I mean, the color match, it's always difficult to color match. I would prefer to either do corner to corner or an entire room when you're doing a new color, just because it's never going to match perfectly, even if you have the exact same color, because there's light coming in, UV is going to fade stuff. You got to think about that. So that job complete with materials was $600. There was, like I said, some materials involved with the faucet. There was also a gallon of paint, so that was that. That was pretty much Wednesday. Jumping over to Thursday, this was a busy day, kind of going all over the place. So the first thing first, we had a new customer. Is actually somebody from the LATIP chapter that I joined, who needs a pair of storm doors installed on the backside of their house. Luckily, they're not in a rush, because I don't exactly have a ton of time at the immediate moment to take care of something like that. But I also probably will have to order what is needed. So that said, that is I went to that estimate mostly just because it's somebody that I am trying to, show good standing. Now, could I have done it not on site? Yes, I absolutely could have. However, getting the door measurements, there was one thing that I wouldn't have necessarily immediately seen from a picture unless I really was like zooming in on the picture, which is, for whatever reason, when these doors were installed, they were installed with a track that has, or a frame that has a spot for a screen door, a sliding patio screen door, but there's clearly no way for a sliding screen door to fit. So my only thought is that there was a panel at some point, or there was intended to be a panel. The issue is that the way it exists, there's not a way to like pop it in place. So I'm not sure what that is. So unfortunately, we'll have to cut that frame in order to get the storm door in place, but it's pretty straightforward. It's still standard size, so it's not that big of a deal. So there was that. Then after that, we went literally 5 minutes down the road to the next job. This one was a customer, and this was a newer customer, contacted me about 2 weeks ago, had a couple of different things that he wanted to get taken care of. He too is also looking to sell his property soon and just trying to get things taken care of that have yet to be taken care of in a long time. So the first thing we had was there was a air intake pipe for the furnace. Now, this is not a common thing all over the place, but it is required by some villages in my area to have an air intake pipe directly going to your furnace. In some cases, you could get away with having just the furnace and the air is coming in from the basement, but I'm not an HVAC person. This is just what I was told. And the reason why I know this is because I had a HVAC person in my own house. I had a pipe that went from the furnace outside. The entire intention was to pull air in for the furnace, air from outside. The problem is that when you get to temperature changes, you have a tendency to have moisture build up in that pipe. I have 2 furnaces in my house, and the furnace upstairs had a problem where moisture was coming in and there was condensation that was pooling inside of, underneath the actual furnace. Luckily, there's a pan that leads to a drain, but again, it's one of those things where when the HVAC person explained it to me, it was that the village requires that, but it is not needed because you have air coming in from other avenues. You have an air intake vents and stuff like that. So that said, I've seen them cut out at multiple different places. His was he had a coupler and a PVC pipe, 3-inch PVC pipe that was connecting together. The PVC pipe had come unglued. Either that or just wasn't enough primer or something, but it didn't seed correctly. So over the years, it just sagged and then popped out. So it was leaking water, but only a little bit of water, which I thought it was a drain line, to be honest, when he described it to me because of the size of the pipe. When I got on site and realized it was this, then I realized it was pretty straightforward. So the quickest and least expensive fix was to cut out a section of pipe, put in a new piece of pipe, and then just to put 2 Fernco couplers on the new pipe to the existing pipe. From the picture, it looks like it's sagging, but it's actually sagging in the direction that it's supposed to sag. It's more of there was a support that was already pre-installed in a specific spot that pushed it up, but not in a way where it's going to have any issues. So there was that. Then there was a bifold door. The door itself was just a tad bit too tall after they installed new flooring. So they wanted to have the door shaved down to get into it. All I did was just plane off, I think it was like 1/8 of an inch off the bottom of the door, and then actually it was the top of the door that I did this because the top of the door has a little bit more give where those pins go in. So that said, did that, knocked that out. The last thing that he had, if I remember correctly, the last thing he had was he had a window well that had been clogged up for a very long period of time. The window well needed to be, basically there's just a bunch of gunk in the drain that needs to get out just from years of it sitting. The problem is that when he described it on the phone, he made it seem like it was a big window well. This is not a big window well. And there's also no access from the basement because it's glass block. So I have to get down in there, pull the grate, try to slurry up the mud that's down there and vacuum it up with the wet vac, and then potentially after that, then get the grate back in there and drop some, a couple bags of rocks on top of it so that it drains properly. That's a little bit more involved than I was planning, so we put that part of the project on hold, but that project will end up getting done in the future because he's already said he wants to get it done before he sells the house. So that job, just with the things that I did, was $340. From there, we went back to another existing customer that had, this is the same customer that I just did the vanity repairs, where I replaced the inside of the vanities. This was just last week. So I was back there. He had a reverse osmosis system installed underneath his sink, but the company that installed it did not have the capability of drilling into the quartz countertop. Now, to be completely honest, I've never done this before. I've seen videos online about how straightforward it is and how it can be straightforward. You just have to be, you have to take your time. So I was able to drill the hole in the quartz, get the faucet installed, and then I said that I would hook up the rest so you didn't have to have the plumber come back out. Now, the only catch with all of this is, so everything is pretty straightforward. There's certain size pipes, there's certain colors that you have to hook them up to the certain directions. It's all pretty straightforward. You follow the instructions. The one catch is I didn't set up anything except the faucet. I connected the faucet to the filter system, which was already mounted. All the filters were pre-set up. The reserve tank was already pre-set up, and the hose was going to the reserve tank. The only thing that I did was hook up the hoses to the filters system, and then I also put the drain line into the saddle, or put in a saddle for the drain line underneath. Now, everything was working fine when I left. Unfortunately, about an hour after I left, the customer sent me a text message saying that the reserve tank was leaking. Again, I didn't have anything to do with the reserve tank, but as it turns out, the reserve tank, and I thought maybe in the off chance it was me, he's contacting me, I'm going to solve the problem. The reserve tank, when the plumber set it up, did not use any sort of Teflon tape on the threads when he connected the John Guest valve onto the top of it. And because of that, that's where it was leaking. So as soon as the tank filled up and it was completely pressurized, water starts leaking out of it. So I ended up going back there on Friday morning to take care of it. I did not assume it was going to be Teflon tape, and I made the mistake of not bringing my entire plumbing kit because of what else I was doing later in the day. So I didn't have Teflon tape, and unfortunately this customer lives about 20 minutes away from everything. So I had to go there, figure out what exactly the problem was. Once I figured out it was Teflon tape, kind of kicked myself for not having some, because I don't typically have it. I mean, when I replace shower heads and things like that, it comes with Teflon tape, and there's very few other things that I use Teflon tape for, that I do specifically. So that said, it sucked, but I had to run to the store and get Teflon tape and come back. So I needed to drive 20 minutes for a $2 item and then drive 20 minutes back, come back, hook it up, and then I need to make sure it got enough water in it to have pressure so that I could make sure that it wasn't something wrong with the fitting or anything like that. The fitting, thank goodness, did not need to be replaced, because if the fitting did need to be replaced, we would have been in a much worse scenario, because the hardware store that was 20 minutes away did not have that. I would have had to go to Home Depot, which was like almost 30 minutes away. So luckily the tank pressurized, no leaks, customer was happy. That customer also gave me, so they have another project that I estimated it out. It's one of the ones, the new estimates that actually went out this week, which is demoing 2 feet up from the ground in his basement to get rid of some mildew issues that he had where there was water. I quoted that out. He sounded like he was going to approve that, but that's not going to be done for at least a couple more weeks. In addition to that, he needs a new exterior door installed on a barn or an outbuilding. He also has a hot water dispenser he would like installed in his kitchen, or on-demand hot water, I should say. It's one of those ones where like it just takes the water and heats it up automatically. So when you push it, it's hot water. And then he needs a sliding barn door installed for his office. So a slew of work that keeps coming in from, existing customers. That's why it's so hard to get to the new customers. So the other thing I did on Friday was I went back to the property sale, or the property that we're prepping to sell for the property manager. My goal for Friday was to get everything that I needed to get done in the bedrooms done, because that's where the carpet needs to get installed. I have a subcontractor who's doing the carpet. He comes in, he just installs the carpet. I have to provide the carpet and have the carpet on site, and I have to have the old carpet and pad removed as well. He comes in, puts in new pad, installs a new carpet, everything's good to go. But I needed to get that done, and those 3 bedrooms all needed to be painted. Because of that, I wanted to be able to paint them before the new carpet went in, but I also wanted to I had to patch holes in the walls. There's some other minor things, but most of it was just get the paint done for those rooms so that I'm not having to worry about the carpet or having to protect the carpet. So when I got there, I went and picked up the paint, went and picked up some other supplies that I needed for that specific job, then got over there. I ended up patching all 3 of the bedrooms at once. And then I went back through, started the first bedroom, got that one painted, got the second bedroom painted, and then I had to leave to pick up my daughter from school. After that, I came back with my son, who was working with me for the rest of the evening. So we went and picked up the new carpet, delivered it to the house. As I painted the third bedroom, he started pulling up the carpet in the first bedroom and the second bedroom, and then subsequently the third bedroom when I was done. In addition to that, I also I had to remove the toilet to do a drywall repair behind the toilet, where water was clearly getting onto the drywall. So we had to cut out a big section of drywall and then do the repair, because I wanted to get that so that it would dry. Give it time to dry, I should say. And then it was just a matter of getting some other stuff just cleaned up, so that way everything was good to go when the guy shows up today, Saturday, for the carpet. So he's currently on site. I know he's going to finish, because he always finishes on the day that he says he's going to finish, knock on wood. And then that'll get taken care of. And then while I am going on vacation on Monday, tomorrow, Sunday, I'll be working, even though I normally don't, because there's a very high probability that if I'm there for a full day, and I mean maybe a long day, I will be able to finish it. What I have left to do there is a lot of really minor things: changing out light bulbs, making sure there's pull chains, fixing a shelf, or replacing some shelf brackets. The big 3 things is that there's both bathroom vanities need to be completely taken out and replaced. So that's one. The one bathroom needs to have new baseboards installed, which won't take that long because it's a very small bathroom. That same bathroom has the drywall repair that needs to be done, and then that room needs to be painted. Outside of that, there really isn't any other big, huge items that need to get taken care of. A lot of it's just smaller stuff. So I'm really trying hard to get that job done before I go on vacation, because if I do, that is a significant job that will be completed, which that revenue coming in from that job is will more than cover the week that I'm gone out on vacation. Plus, the other side of it is when I come back from vacation, I have a huge slew of stuff that needs to get taken care of in a very brief time again. Where just in the first couple days back from vacation, there's another almost $5,000 of work that needs to get completed. So there's not a lot of time. So I'm unfortunately breaking one of my rules and going to work on Sundays, but luckily that works when it's an empty property that you don't have to worry about arranging with clients. Because I don't really want to do that. But so that was that. So the total for the week, total amount was $2,645, so just a little bit down from last week. However, like I said, if I get that one job done, that adds another $6,800 to the overall total for the month. So that being said, let me run through some of the other business related things. So first up, on Monday, we had a marketing call. I'm not going to name the name of the company. I believe that company will be able to help me in the future. I already have a website. I already have a Google profile. I already get good reviews. I don't necessarily need a company to come in to do that for me create a website that I already have. None of that really does anything at the immediate time. The price point is not unreasonable, but it is high for somebody like myself who already has a lot of that stuff. So maybe down the line, get a fresh website, revamped, all of that. But for the time being, it wasn't necessary. Next up, I had the onboarding with the receptionist call service that I chose to use. That went pretty quickly. That was more of like a, what do you want us to say? How do you want us, what do you want? Is there certain things you want us to try to deviate customers from, or if a customer calls about a specific job and you don't do it, how do you want us to approach it? Things like that. So all of that was set up, or that meeting was successful. After that, she said it would take about 2 days. It actually went through on Tuesday as it was set up. There was some kinks that had to get fixed, but I think most of the kinks are good. The plus side is that they've taken 3 calls from people. One of them they disqualified because they were asking about jobs that I do not do. And one of them is a customer that I already have scheduled an initial estimate with them. And then the other customer was a doctor's office that's looking to have some work done. And that doctor's office is supposed to be putting together a list of different things that they would like completed. At the moment when I was on the phone with them, I was trying to not say, sorry, I'm going to be on vacation over the next week. But at the same time, normally I would try to get over there as soon as possible because those are good repeat customers to keep. Because whenever they have something that needs to get done, they'll call you. But I'm not going to be here to get over there while I'm not going to be able to get over there while I'm on vacation. So the receptionist thing completely set up. That was a big goal of mine to get that set up, and I think it'll be very, very fruitful in the grand scheme of things, getting it all taken care of and getting people's calls answered, because there are customers that I know do not want to leave voicemails because they just think that no one's ever going to call them back. The only thing I have to be good about is I have to be good about calling back those customers at the end of the day rather than waiting till the next day, because if I wait till the next day, I tend to wait too much time and then we're too late. What else do we got? We have on Wednesday, we had Le Tip in the morning. That potentially got 2 new leads from, one of them was the storm door, which I already talked about, and another customer, which I have to go look at. He's not in an immediate rush, but he has some trim around the exterior of his house that needs to be replaced, but nothing too crazy, just a couple of columns that are wrapped and things like that. So that should be pretty straightforward as well. Then we met with my CPA or tax professional, however you want to phrase it. He is both, but he does my taxes. But I had a meeting set up with him specifically to convert my business from a single member LLC to an S Corp so that I could start drawing payroll specifically for myself. This is also with the intention of trying to get other things set up to have payroll for employees when that time comes. I think I explained this last week with the Indeed thing. It did not work out very well. I did not have a lot of luck with the candidates. My business coach that I met with on Thursday gave me some great advice about maybe try contacting them outside of Indeed if they have a phone number available, so that way you can try to get in touch with them that way. So I will try to attempt to do that while I'm on vacation. But I came up with another idea, which is my son, who's in high school, has some other high school friends who are reliable. They get good grades. They have good work ethic, and they're young, so they're easy to train. They can take direction, or you assume they can take direction. So what my thought was I only really typically need somebody temporarily in the summer, spring and summer. It'd be great if I had somebody in May, but at the same time, the high school does have early release if you have a job, a certain type of job. So that's an option when they become seniors. But but putting that aside, the other side of this is that if I can get a couple of helpers and they can do tasks like pulling the carpet, hauling the carpet to the car, teach them, make sure they know how to paint and set them in a room to paint, then I can worry about replacing the vanity, putting in the baseboards, things like that take more skill. So that's my thought process, is to get that taken care of. And maybe for the immediate future, while I'm looking for, a tech, an actual tech rather than that I can just take on more work that involves more manual labor by using the manual labor, people. Or the people that are younger who don't, who can do manual labor but aren't necessarily as skilled. So that could work out well. We'll see what ends up with that. One of his friends is definitely interested, but we're still a couple weeks out before school gets out, so we have to just kind of like coast until that point. All of that said, there was a lot of stuff that happened. 3 new estimates went out, even though there's a slew of stuff that I'm going to have to be putting out next week while I'm on vacation. And then there was a total of 4 new clients. Now, these new clients are either people who directly texted me or got in touch with the reception, or called and got in touch with the receptionist service and could translate to actual customers in the future. So it's a good week. Obviously, it's always great when the money's higher. I would prefer it to, I really want it to be in that $2,000 range. However, if I could get to $3,000 or $4,000 range, that would be much better, because then I could start squirreling away money for potentially a work van that I can build out for this tech that I eventually will need to find. But in the meantime, the van could be used. I could utilize the van instead of driving around in my truck, utilize the van as well. So lots of different things going on. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Like I said, despite going on vacation, the next time you guys hear from me, there won't be any breaks in videos. We're just slowly getting caught up because I had a little bit of a log before I started releasing videos. So once this video comes out, we'll just pick right back up. You'll find out what happened on Sunday, whether or not I got done, and then we'll just pick up with the rest of the week from after I got back from vacation. So with all that said, be sure to check out the other videos that I release on Thursdays. Those are typically in relation to something business related. Recently, we've talked about how to say no. We've talked about tools that I typically use, the main tools that are in my toolbox. We talked about a typical day in the life of a handyman, what makes a good handyman, all of these different topics that can be very helpful if you're looking to potentially start your business or you're looking just to become more professional as a handyman. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching This Week in the Field with the Handyman in the Field. We'll see you guys next time.